A warm welcome from my side to our event today, our closing event of the conference Move It, Youth Mobility in a Digital Era. Thanks for your patience also, waiting for us a couple of minutes. I'm Sabrina, for the ones who don't know me, one of the facilitators. You will get to know Evaldos very soon. Before we start, actually, some information for you. We are, as you can see and notice, we are live streaming for the first part of the event on Facebook. And we are also recording, the second part, which is more about you, workshops, working groups, and yes, exactly. So we will record it just for you to know. In order to get a better comfort for you as a viewer, you are, if you can see the video just as a little window in your screen, you can click in the middle. It's popping up as a bigger screen and you have some comments on the right side. Yes? Great. That's about the technical issues. About the conference, I mean, as you know, this is a series of online events. This is the very last one where we want to have a look into the future. And this conference is actually organized by several partners. One is Jugend für Europa, the German national agency for the programs ErasmusPlus and Youth in Action, and the European Solidarity Corps. There is also involved the International Youth Service of the Federal Republic of Germany, EAP. There is the Estonian Youth Work Center. There is Verke, which is the Center of Expertise for Digital Youth Work. And there is also the Finnish National Agency involved. Exactly. So today, or let's say, not to forget who else is supporting this event. We have with us, and today we cannot show her, but she is behind the scenes. She is backstage. Agne Rapalaitse from visualmind.lt from Lithuania. She is again graphic recording for us, the key elements which our speakers is coming up with, and also you as the audience. And there's also Ricarda and David von Verde Digital, who will host us again in Zoom and are supporting us all the time with the technical issues. There's also Ranav, who is hosting us with the live event now here. And there is Inge and Katharina from the core team of organizers, and of course a lot of representatives of the recently mentioned partner organizations and institutions, and they are present today on stage even, but also behind the scenes. Exactly. And now you have seen already a little foreseeing of the program, but can we see it again? And I tell you a little bit about what's actually planned for today. So we need again the image of the program, if possible, Ranav. If not, I'm just continuing. We will have the public part of our event here, as you have seen in the slide, on Facebook. So we invited our 4 speakers, which is Tomi, Suvi, and Marta and Anna, to have an opening statement on, and this is our main topic today, how to further develop youth mobility in a digital era. So we are actually invited our guests to foreseeing the future of digital youth mobility and youth work in general, and really traveling to 2030. And the question is also, has the outlook in a way changed due to the current situation? So that's for the first part. Then we will also have a Q&A part with you together. You are invited to follow the chat and comment and ask your questions there. They will be collected. And then around 5 to 3, maybe a bit later now, since we are a bit delayed, we will stop the live stream on Facebook and transfer all together to Zoom in order to actually have some working groups and breakout session in smaller groups together thinking about the future of youth mobility. And finally, then we have some closing and summary words in the end as an evaluation and a final end with you with some music, of course. like, you know. Thanks a lot. And we also want to know who is out there.
So let's have a look at our audience. And as always, we have a short Menti survey for you prepared. So please take your device or just turn on your browser and go to menti.com. And then enter the code 179958, 179958. So join us on menti.com, and the code to join is 179958. And the first question we have prepared for you today is how many Move It sessions have you already attended? So there are in general 7 events. So today is the 7th one, and we would like to see how many of you have attended already how many of the events. And I already see that there are some who have seen even 5 of the events, and this number is getting bigger. So please join us on menti.com with the code 179958. And we see that most of the audience is has already attended 5 events. That's great to see. So most of you have already seen all of our bar camp opening and also 4 digital mobility labs that we just finished on Monday. And there are second last position is those who have attended 6 events even. That's even better to know. But there are also some newcomers. So very warm welcome for you today here in the community of those who are working for future of youth mobility. And today is exactly the day for you to get on board, because we will be just discussing also about what the future has there for us. So let's have a look at the second question, and we are interested to see also what you have taken out so far from our events, and what is the biggest takeaway so far for you. So just let us know in short keywords, what was the biggest takeaway, the aha moment, maybe your learning experience, or something, just an impression that you have taken out from those sessions that you have attended so far. So join us on menti.com, 179958. So we see that some of you have been inspired. You had the chance to share knowledge and experience about the future that is to come. So please keep sharing. You have been motivated. Well, we see that you are joining also today. So we believe and we hope that you will keep up with us here in developing the topic of youth mobility, hybrid spaces or blended mobilities, positive experiences, openness of national agencies for the dialogue, using new tools. As you see, today we are also using new tools, and we will maybe let you know about that later on when we're meeting in the Zoom discussion. So thank you so much for sharing your ideas and also what you are taking out from Move It session so far. We will have the chance to discuss even more and in greater detail, so keep with us here. But now I would like already to present somebody who has joined us here on our panel discussion, where we have practitioners, researchers, policymakers, and those who are just looking into future and also maybe trying to blend out all of that, what has been going on in the last couple of months. And this is something that we would like to encourage you to do too. So we can really discuss about a bit longer term and longer run future that is here for us. Today our panel discussion will be opened with Tomi KIILAKOSKI, who is a senior researcher at the Finnish Youth Research Society. So, Tomi, how do you see youth mobility in 2030?
Thank you. And lovely pronunciation of my name. It's a difficult Finnish name. Greetings from all of Finland, that's in northern Finland in the in the land of midnight sun. When we are thinking about future 2030, we have to overemphasize changes. We tend to think that things are hugely different, whereas in reality, a lot of the things stay the same. And then we are thinking about a youth mobility. I think two perspectives are needed, which are going to be much the same. One perspective is that for me, youth work is essentially about learning, and youth mobility are about learning. So learning is a process where you come into terms with your environment, and whenever you change, and whenever the environment change, you need to learn new things, and you are forced to learn new things. And that's why youth mobility is such a powerful tool for learning. When you engage in youth mobility, you find yourself in a new surrounding, with new people, with new social habits, and you need to cope with this change. So it's totally different, and you need to learn. So that's one element that is going to be there, and I think we need that sort of learning. We have needed that for centuries. So essentially, that is going to be the same. And another thing is that to do youth mobilities effectively, we need to have youth work. And for me, youth work is about establishing a pedagogical relation with youth workers and young people. So that too is going to stay the same, although maybe the tools we are going to use to build that relationship, they might be different in the future. And two elements of youth work that I usually said is the fact that firstly, youth work is about creating spaces between young people. So when we are talking about youth mobilities in 2030, we need to still have youth workers who are able to create spaces between young people, so they can be together, they can learn from each other, they can have fun, and they can just hang around. And of course, the use of digital tools and digital devices might change the way we create spaces, but the basic need to create spaces, it stays the same. And another function of youth work is to build bridges between young people and society. And that is going to affect youth mobilities too, I guess. So societies can learn from young people, and youth workers need to push and maybe fight so that societies could better recognize the power that young people hold. And they also should recognize the learning that takes place in youth mobilities. And for those reasons, I think that the basic element of youth mobilities and youth work behind that will stay the same. But I also see some of the driving force that are probably going to make youth mobilities a bit different. The first one of them is the need to learn how to become critical. So a lot of the things in our societies are not right, and people are rightly dissatisfied with some of the things we have done in our societies. So how can youth work better help young people to become more critical towards societies? That I think is one of the key challenges. It's not only about building bridges. Sometimes it's about burning bridges as well, so to speak. And second feature that will cause differences is the role of environment. Now, obviously, every one of us has read about environmental change and the need to learn how to become ecologically and socially sustainable. And it's going to change ways of transportation, ways of consuming, ways of being together. And I think that they need to take this seriously in youth work, and that's one of the biggest challenges to come in the next 10 years. And in 2030, we will also have different technologies. The digital devices have developed, and there are new ways of using those, and new cultures are emerging, and they need to be able to integrate those to youth mobilities and to blend them and to help young people learn more effectively. And fourth challenge, I think, that is going to affect youth work and youth mobilities is the increasing cross-sectorial cooperation. So it's not only about youth workers building bridges and creating spaces. It's building them and creating them together with nurses, social workers, police, library workers, and such. So therefore, I think that some of the things will be recognizable and stay the same. but there are going to be differences because of criticality, environment, technological changes, and cross-sectorial cooperation. So, thank you.
Thanks a lot, Tomi.
Sorry, that was my alarm clock. My 5 minutes is over. Yeah.
Great. I think it's better now to mute. So maybe you set up more alarms. Thanks a lot. People were already interested in your presentation, which they already got because it's already uploaded. So great. Before we discuss a bit together, we give the hand already to the next one as an opening statement, so we get to know all of you, and then we'll follow the questions. Yeah. So we also have invited Anne KIVIMÄE, who is started her career, let's say, as a local youth worker. She has been for more than a decade, I think, working as a head of youth affairs in the Estonian Ministry of Education and Research. But she is now actually leading a youth work monitoring team in the Estonian Youth Work Center, and she's also teaching a lecturer at the Tartu University Narva College. Welcome, the stage is yours. So we are curious how you see the youth mobility in 2030. I think you have to unmute yourself.
Always helpful to have microphone on. Thank you, Sabrina, and hello to everyone, and best greetings from very unusually sunny Estonia today. I would like to start with congratulating the organizers of this months-long journey called Move It, and I do think you have moved on many discussions, ideas, thoughts. And I'm also very glad to be part of it today, this final event. When I was preparing for today's meeting, I suddenly realized that mobility, it's actually quite emotional for me, if you could imagine it. I think the moment I was my coming of age moment as a youth worker was exactly during the Council of Europe long-term training course, mobility opportunity for young beginner youth worker. And it has been important ever since. And also in 2012, when we in Estonia, we started to discuss new national strategy, which is in force now. We wrote down a term, smart youth work, and it was also impacted by mobility of experiences of our people who have been in youth work for many years, but also from other countries and other sectors. And I perhaps even could say this is sort of a mental mobility. And youth sector during this pandemic, we have just now emerging from, has demonstrated its extraordinary, I would call, capability of being ready to rethink, react, regroup in order to be there for young people as youth work service. And this is something, the resilience and effectiveness is something that is very searched for in many areas, and it could be learned from our sector all over the countries. But when looking into the future and thinking about the mobility in 10 years for young people, but also for youth workers, I see the way forward in something that I would like to call, and no surprises here, smart youth mobility. based on the experiences gained and capabilities demonstrated by youth work practitioners during this lockdown situation, there is, I think, a momentum to be built on that could ensure that our future mobility opportunities can be more varied and also more reachable for youth and youth workers. I do mean supported more by technologies and digital tools, but not only. The work of practitioners could also be enriched by all aspects of the digital society, including by data-driven solutions designed specifically for youth work, and by foresight, policy predictions based on data analysis. There's a lot of data about young people, about youth work, and we are not using it enough to advance youth work, to support practitioners. And just a few words we have tried in Estonia together with Statistics Estonia, to map administrative data gathered about young people and youth work, also make it more available for decision making. And we are thinking how to make data more useful also for young people. Which brings me to the point that we also need ways looking at the future of youth mobility to see the future through young people's eyes. When we go somewhere, we have used Google Street View, and we know better where we go. I think we should have youth view, so we would know better about the current situation of young people, but also about where they want and how young people want to be more mobile, be connected. And here I see also a way forward for cooperation in Europe. Data-rich developments that support practitioners need more coordinated and cooperation-based approaches, and frankly more money to be systemic, to be wide-reaching. So to conclude this, I do think that we will not have as clear definitions for youth mobility in 2030 as we do now, or have had so far, like youth exchanges, very clear and understandable concept. But varied methods, multiple tools, combined ways will most probably define mobility and make it hopefully more inclusive and smart. So thank you very much.
Anne, thank you for bringing in the topics also that I do agree with you absolutely that we should be talking more about, particularly when it comes to future foresight. It has so much for us to offer. And if we can take the very first step today during our event and during our future workshop. So thanks again, Anne, for your ideas and for also some for thought. I hope also for the participants watching us, right, this is giving them an idea where we will be heading to just in half an hour. So we will move on, and we want also to hear maybe from another perspective, from somebody who has been working in the field of youth over 20 years. However, we are not looking back in those 20 years, but looking into the future. So welcome, Marta MŁDLISKA, who is the coordinator of the EU, European Union and Council of Europe partnership in the field of youth. And you are coordinating this very exciting organization that is standing in between of the biggest stakeholders when it comes to youth policy in Europe. So what can you tell us? What are your ideas, and what do you think will move here or will be the moving forces in the time of 10 years?
Thank you very much also for the invitation to join you here. No pressure, no pressure. After such an introduction, I feel the expectations are high, but I actually wanted to start with looking a little bit back to the past. When thinking about this intro, I recall the situation in which, as a trainer, after coming back from a very intense international training activity, I woke up in the middle of the night, sitting on my bed and talking to participants and trying to explain to myself that they were no longer around me. And I realized that now we are talking about virtual activities, virtual learning mobility, and this is actually what we are doing right now. I'm sitting in my living room and I'm talking to you, but it's not a dream, it's reality. But I think there are different ways in which we can improve it, and maybe here I would like to share some insights more from this background of the youth partnership between the two partner institutions. We basically work mostly around this cooperation between policy, practice, and research. So trying to see what one can learn from research, but also verify it in practice, sometimes learn from practice and analyze it with the help of research, and then support by policy to make sustainable solutions possible. And learning mobility is one of the topics that we have been addressing in the last years, not least by coordinating the work of the European Learning Mobility Platform. And these reflections lately, as you can imagine easily, focused a lot on the virtual and online dimensions. A few years ago, they would not even be considered part of learning mobility. And now, with also the lockdown COVID situation, we see that they can very well be. And when we were talking about the quality of such mobility, I think it's really important to think about a few key ones. And of course, I will not try to go through everything, but at least a few points. Many of them have already been covered by Tomi. Some were also covered by Anna. So I'll try to focus on the last point that Anna left her input on, which is inclusive, so leaving no one behind. I think that also this crisis now, where we had such a steep learning curve on how we can use digital for our lives, in making it a blended aspect, making it a blended life, on-life mobility. It's online and it's offline, or intangible life, as some people may say. And some people really learned a lot and advanced hugely, and others were really disconnected and sometimes abandoned to themselves. So I think there is a great deal that we will need to do to make sure that no one is left behind. And there is a study that we have been also running in the Youth Partnership on young people, digitalization and social inclusion of young people. It was one of the presentations earlier in the series. I would like to highlight also another part, which is the community impact. It was also mentioned a bit. It's not only for those who are mobile, it's also for those who stay. But this bringing knowledge, experience from one place to another, sharing it, multiplying it, because it's actually not sharing, so I have less. We have all when we share. And the question also of sustainability. So how can we make sure that learning mobility is sustainable in ecological terms? And it helps, of course, when there are also digital aspects. But also how can it be maintained so that it is a logical progression? The elements which are online and offline are well planned and blended. I don't think that anybody is advocating for having digital mobility only, and at least that would not be my intention to be imagining learning mobility in this way in 2030. I would be very much for the blended approach. That would be bold, creative, built together, so co-created with the users and those who decide also on the measures that need to be put in place, with the researchers that can help understand what works and why, and inclusive. And then it would prepare us for the new challenges ahead of us. And I thank you for the opportunity to share some of those thoughts and look forward to the discussions in the group.
Thanks a lot, Marta, for your kind of adding points, which are quite important, and we will discuss about them a bit later, I'm sure. We have one last guest here with us and an opening statement by her. She is Suvi TUOMINEN, the manager from Verke, the Center of Expertise for Digital Youth Work. And she has, let's say, a wide expertise in digitalization, youth work, and young people, I would say. Welcome, Suvi, and let us know what are your ideas for the future of youth mobility.
Thank you. Just last year, my colleagues and I published this book in Finnish, unfortunately. But in making this, this is about future foresight and what will youth work be like in 2030 in Finland in general. And in making this, we had very many interesting internal discussions between ourselves about what will the digital youth work be like, and what's also our view of how it should be developed. And as a background for this book, we ordered a study from XAMK, University of Applied Sciences, and they interviewed 30 or 40 youth work managers, specialists, youth workers around Finland, and also made EDELFOI questionnaire about the future of youth work. And I'm not sure if you see the quote now on the screen. There should be a quote from the study about from one of the respondents from the survey, and they said that basically that what we think about now, what is the digital technologies at the moment, it can be totally different in 2030. So what we mean with digital will change radically during the next 10 years. At the moment, when we talk about virtual exchange or digital youth work, we mainly think about social media, online platforms, computers, smartphones, but there's a lot more digital technologies than those, and there will be even more. So I'm sure that when we look back from 2030, we will see that there was actually quite a kind of a lack of innovation at this point in time. I also want to emphasize, and what came also from the study, is that digitalization doesn't mean doing the same things that we have done before, but only in a digital environment. And this also applies for youth mobilities. So digitalization should mean that we will do the whole thing a bit differently than before, not only moving the old concept to a new environment, because it doesn't work like that. Digitalization doesn't just happen automatically. It needs plans and concrete actions to become reality. So it doesn't fall from the sky and then it becomes reality in youth work. But there needs to be plans and concrete actions and strategies. Last year, EU Council conclusions on digital youth work were published, and they also highlight the aspect that the youth work strategies lack a future foresight, and that should be developed and in national strategies. So also, as well as national strategies, also organizational strategies should have a clear vision on how the youth work organizations will use technology and how they will gain their understanding on using technology in the next years, because digitalization is evolving so rapidly. The organizations will also have to develop strategies on how they constantly gain their own understanding on technology. And because digitalization affects all youth work, not just one part of it, the strategies should be, the digitalization should be embedded in all youth work strategies and not only in just one part of it. In future, people will travel less, maybe, from one place to another, and mixed realities will become more and more common. So that other people will be in face-to-face situations, and others will join them virtually, or also that in a physical space there are digital spaces present at the same time. So I believe that the augmented reality, virtual reality will become more common as technologies, and we will also learn how to use them in youth work. What could happen? One risk that also Marta mentioned just now is that there could be risks for social inclusion, or actually risk of exclusion. So in youth work, we have to make sure that all young people have the capabilities and also the equipment to take part in these virtual reality and augmented reality spaces. It's a huge task for youth work to be there for young people. Yes, I think that's about it for me.
Thank you, Suvi. You have been shooting at us so many different concepts, and I would like now to give it back also maybe to your colleague, Tomi. Let's start with looking into that what has been now discussed in this panel, and how do you see this kind of a dilemma? Are we getting young people included through digitalization, or are we talking about a risk of exclusion? How do you see this?
Well, probably every researcher in the whole world would say that it's about both of them. So clearly, it's a possibility of democratizing a lot of things. I live in northern Finland myself, and the distances are huge. So some of the young people living in northern Finland, for obvious reasons, they cannot attend a lot of meetings because it takes such a lot of money. So for them, it's a wonderful thing. Then again, if you're looking at the impact of COVID-19 crisis in Finland, we are one of the most digitalized countries in the world. That is what we like to believe, and that is what some of the statistics show. And yet in Finland, there's a fairly large number of young people who don't have digital devices in their home, and therefore couldn't join different teaching activities which were given using digital tools, or to attend youth work services. So probably one task for youth work is to sort of be updated about the so-called digital divide, and to pay attention to those young people who cannot attend, and help them with tools, help them to encourage them to use that, and to have knowledge on what is really going on. So it's a challenge in a lot of ways. I don't want to demonize digital devices, because there are wonderful opportunities there, but I don't want to be over enthusiastic about them, because it doesn't happen automatically. We need to be wise with them.
Thanks, Tomi, for your insights on this question. I would like to go back to a topic which was raised in the chat with your comments, and a little bit about maybe Anne, it's for you, but also others are invited, about getting data about youth work and how is it going, and it's a little bit the idea of, or the question, and also skepticism of can we do that in a way of Google is doing it, observing everything and based just on this data, or where are the ways to keep here a balance between Google Street View or Youth View, let's say.
Well, yes, always bringing up the word data, one should bring up the word privacy and caution, and data not being self-explanatory or the truth as such. So I do not believe that there is there is a silver bullet called data and every problem will be solved by this. But also I don't believe that the youth sector is benefiting from all the opportunities that could be developed using more data. And this doesn't have to come from on the account of privacy or surveillance of young people. There are definitely ways, opportunities to use data the way that it will not be invasive, let's say so, or not be a breach of the need to be also not monitored. But still, I see that we should look into the matter more deeply. We should look into the matter also keeping in mind the concerns. So not, yes, the Google view was just an illustration. I don't think we can attach a camera on young people and see how they see the world. But there are a lot of ways how we can understand and invite more young people to share their words, world with us, so we would understand better.
Marta, we have just started talking about big business patients, but there's always also the big stakeholders that are doing the decision making. So how do you see also the youth participation, and how will that change? Do we speak about co-creation? Do we speak any other new combined hybrid methods that we still don't even know about? How do you see this aspect also in a bit longer term future?
So I am a strong believer in co-creation, especially with young people. And I think that young people are also very well informed, many young people, about what is happening. They are the experts in their own lives, and it only makes sense to get them involved in the processes of either proposing youth work offers or afterwards support measures also in policy development. And young people are very often by nature very creative. And even if I do not believe quite in the concept of digital natives, I think that this is something that one needs to learn, and they might be learning faster than many others. At least I feel maybe less advantaged than many of the younger generation representatives. But I think that it's about bringing their voice together to the table in finding solutions that are appropriate. And I am certain that in 2030 there will be new solutions we cannot even think of. And the question of data mentioned earlier is one of the ways of getting a better understanding. But then, for instance, young people need to be involved indeed in trying to make sense of the data that has been collected. Otherwise, it risks giving a false image. And there are very good ways of doing that. This is used a lot in developing youth work offers, in developing youth policy that supports youth work development. And from this perspective, I would like to highlight maybe one point that Tomi made earlier. So the importance of qualifications of youth workers who engage with young people in this particular way, particular to youth work. It is not the same as university exchanges or school exchanges, even if I think we can also, and we need to connect with them probably a bit more to learn also from each other. But I think that the specificity of this doing things together can and will certainly be exploited also in the youth work field.
Thanks a lot, Marta.
I'm not sure if I replied fully because the question was a bit scattered. So I did what I could out of it.
Thanks a lot. I think it gave us some nice ideas, and I would even follow up on that because, as you mentioned, how to deal with the data. There was some nice idea by Ylien, who is also following the chat, based on more the design thinking approach, using user experience approaches in order to have in-depth interviews with young people, for example, to get a bit closer to what we actually need and not just numbers. So I found it quite interesting. So maybe also something for you to think about. But I would switch to another topic now and ask you, because there was a comment that there's no just digital exchange, youth exchange, probably maybe youth worker exchange. How do you see that? So what is digital mobility actually for you? Suvi.
Well, I think, as I said, I think that in the future, mixed realities will become even more common, and we will not talk. I hope that we won't talk about virtual exchanges as a different thing from like a common youth mobility in 2030 anymore. But it will be all the same if it happens virtually or face to face or in a mixed environment. So I think those. I hope that those two will. I also hope that in the Erasmus funding there will be a possibility to do more flexibly these exchanges and mobilities depending on what's the purpose and the personal wishes of participants. But I also want to comment on the design thinking thing which was mentioned, because as it happens, we have made a tool for design thinking and future foresight in youth work that's also available in English, called InnoBox. And it's also available in English and freely downloadable, and also a printed version can be ordered from us for free, not even a postal fee. And so there is a tool, one tool for that kind of design thinking and future foresight in youth work that can be applied if people wish to use it. I can link it later in the chat.
Thanks, Suvi. I actually ordered this already and have it at home. So thanks for actually sharing these concrete proposals, also how to get started with certain tools and approaches. We had a first round capturing most of the questions. There is other ones, for example, about what is the potential, but what is also the danger when we talk about digital tools, platforms out there, also connected to huge enterprises. As we know, we are on one of these in a moment, live streaming. So I think these kind of questions which are still out there, we would like to take them with us now, joining the breakout groups, working groups, small ones, with each of our speakers. We have some more people out there so that we really have small groups talking about the future of youth mobility in 2030 and beyond, maybe. So I would like to invite all of you being out there on Facebook now to join the link, which will be put in the chat, but also you see it then later on the screen of the video, to join Zoom, and see you there in 5 minutes again. And thanks a lot to our speakers until here.